A woman as brings up 12 children learns something besides her ABC. Children's as good as arithmetic to set you finding out things. Hello friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Haley and I am a Christian wife, homeschooling mother of 3, out to redeem my very own literary education, which means that I am encountering childhood classic literature for the very first time in most cases. And I participated in middle grade March this year, and the read-along was of course none other than The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, which is just the absolute perfect spring read about a little girl whose parents both pass away from cholera living in India, and then goes to live with her uncle, Mr. Craven, at the very expansive and lonely Misselthwaite Manor. And when she arrives there, it is the secret of a long hidden garden from 10 years past, and the life of that garden that starts to bring her to life as well. And so this was my first time reading this all the way through, and this was also my daughter's first time encountering this story because I read it aloud to her, and she is 6 years old going on 7, and we both absolutely loved this story. This is not only going to be both of one of our favorite books together, but one of those books that you want to come back to every single spring. But of course, through the lens of a mother and an adult, when I was reading The Secret Garden, it wasn't necessarily the character of Mary Lennox that captured my attention, but the mother, Susan Sowerby, who was Martha's mother, who was a servant to Mary. And Martha is telling Mary all about her mother, and Mary, who is a young orphan who never really knew her mother, is just enraptured by the idea of Susan Sowerby. And more than once, Susan Sowerby inserts her wisdom into the story and into the lives of these children. And I will say, there are a lot of lessons in motherhood to be learned from Susan Sowerby, and that is what I'm going to be sharing with you all today. So if you've read The Secret Garden and you just want to look at it from a different lens, this is a study in motherhood and all of the lessons that we can learn about parenting children from Susan Sowerby herself, who is of course a literary mother who inspires and is one of my favorite literary mothers that I've ever read about. I'm going to be narrating a lot of quotes in here that are spoken in a Yorkshire accent, and they are also written in Yorkshire, so I'll do my best to really capture that in the same way I read it aloud to my daughter, so y'all just bear with me, but we'll talk about it. My mother always said she couldn't see why grand people's children didn't turn out fair fools, what with nurses and being washed and dressed and took out to walk as if they was puppies. Lesson number 1. Children should learn to do for themselves as they are able. So in this story, Mary Lennox was always used to having the servants in India do everything for her. She was well old enough to be able to dress herself, but had never once done so in her entire life. With all of the help she had, she was basically just a doll who let everyone do everything for her, and she kind of just stood around waiting for that and not knowing how to do anything herself. And Susan Sowerby wondered how children like this didn't turn out fools when they grew up because they didn't know how to do anything. And as mothers, often we will do things for our children simply because it's easier or because it's faster if we do it. But what we need to learn from Susan Sowerby and Mary Lennox is that you need to let children learn things for themselves as they're able. Let them learn to dress themselves, put away clothes, help with dishes, and just help with chores that are age appropriate. When I went to university, there were still college students who were bringing home laundry to their parents because they didn't know how to run a washing machine. And that's kind of a parenting failure if you ask me, and we don't want our children to grow up like that. So it's best to let them learn as they grow. Lesson number 2. Mother said that to me once, she said. She was at her wash tub and I was in a bad temper and talking ill of folk, and she turns round on me and says, "The young vixen there thou standing saying thou doesn't like this one and thou doesn't like that one. How does thou like thyself?" It made me laugh and it brought me to my senses in a minute. How do you like yourself? Susan Sowerby is quick to put her daughter Martha in her place when she is gossiping about other people and complaining about them. And how often do we as adults do this or see our children do this? If we notice ourselves being caught in a trap of gossip, the best thing we can do is think about how much we're really happy with ourselves if we're doing that. Are we personally feeling convicted? Is that why we're gossiping about someone? Do we feel self-righteous? We should certainly check ourselves and come back to our senses, just as Susan Sowerby said. This is also something we should avoid as Christians. We should not be gossiping or talking about other people. We should only be saying things that are good and true and beautiful, especially about others, to preserve not only their character and reputation, but ours as a Christian. So Susan Sowerby is once again right in this piece of advice. Lesson number 3. She was full of stories of the delights of her day out. Her mother had been glad to see her, and they had got the baking and washing all out of the way. She had even made each of the children a dough cake with a bit of brown sugar in it. I had 'em all piping hot when they came in from playing on the moor, and the cottage all smelt of nice, clean, hot bacon, and there was a good fire, and they just shouted for joy. Our Dickon, he said our cottage was good enough for a king to live in. Your home, your cottage, is your family's castle. No matter what it looks like, no matter how small or large, how grand or simple it is, your home is your family's safe haven. By creating that welcoming, cozy, inviting space, either by a fireside or by a clean home or by baked goods, you as a mother set the tone for the way a house feels. Now, Susan Sowerby had 12 children. They lived in a tiny cottage and they were poor, but Dickon felt like their home was good enough for a king, which just speaks to how wonderful Susan Sowerby is as a mother, because she made their home feel like a palace that everyone could feel invited and welcome in. Lesson number 4. Put on thy things and run and skip out of doors, said Martha. Mother said I must tell you to keep out of doors as much as you could, even when it rains a bit, so as thou wrap up warm. Lesson number 4 is there is no such thing as bad weather, and Susan Sowerby believes this as well. Now, there is a literal book out there in the motherhood and parenting world titled There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather, and it's all about making sure your kids go out of doors, really no matter what it's like. It's not really that there's bad weather, they may just not be dressed appropriately to join in. Susan Sowerby thinks this as well, and as a matter of fact, Susan Sowerby is constantly encouraging Mary to play out of doors because she knows how healthy it's going to be to her. And when you read The Secret Garden, you really see Mary come to life and come to health by playing outside. She even goes so far as to use the little money they get to buy Mary a skipping rope, a jump rope, so that she can play outside and she can get her legs moving. And out of doors is wonderful for children. If you are at all a part of the homeschool community and you know who Charlotte Mason is, you know that she highly encourages young children to spend as much time out of doors as possible. Susan Sowerby concurs, and so do I. Lesson number 5. There now, she exclaimed. If that wasn't one of the things Mother said. She says, there's such a lot of room in that big place. Why don't they give her a bit for herself, even if she doesn't plant nothing but parsley and radishes? She'd dig and rake away and be right down happy over it. Them was the very words she said. So lesson number 5 is that children should have a bit of earth of their own. So if your family has a garden, give your children a small plot in that garden. If you don't, give them a flower pot to grow a vegetable or a flower in. Let them have a little bit of earth so that they can take part in creation. It is so good for their little souls and their bodies to dig their hands into the dirt and do something with it, whether it's successful or whether it's not and they learn something. Either way, it's a great thing for a child to have. And that's from Susan Sowerby herself. Lesson number 6. Poor lad, he's been spoiled till salt won't save him. Mother says as the 2 worst things as can happen to a child is never to have his own way or always to have it. She doesn't know which is the worst. So lesson number 6 is that there is such a thing as saying yes too much to your child to the point of spoiling them, or saying no too much to a child to the point that they don't ever get to try or do anything. What Susan Sowerby is saying is that there is a happy middle ground. Yes, some things you should allow a child to do and give them that opportunity to learn, but sometimes the answer is just plain no, and they need to learn how to accept that well. You don't want to spoil a child, but you don't want to hinder them either. Find a healthy balance for your child so that they can try things out, but they're not spoiled to death by it. Lesson number 7. I believe Susan Sowerby's right, I do that, said Mrs. Medlock. I stopped in her cottage on my way to Thwaite yesterday and had a bit of a talk with her, and she says to me, well, Sarah Ann, she mayn't be a good child and she mayn't be a pretty one, but she's a child, and children needs children. Lesson number 7 is that children need one another in order to thrive. Whether that is a sibling set, whether your child really gets to hang out with their cousins a lot, whether they go to public school, or they're a part of a co-op and homeschool, or they have their church friends, children need one another. There's a lot that children gain from being around adults of various ages, but there's even more that they get from being around kids of their own age and various other ages. Children tend to bring out sometimes the worst in each other, but often the best. So if you are a homeschool mother or a stay-at-home parent, it's good, which of course you know this, it's good to get your children around other children, even if they have siblings. Sometimes they just need that break from you in order to get to interact with others, because not only is that going to be good for them, but your children will be good for other children too. According to Susan Sowerby, children need children. Lesson number 8. She was full of fun and made them laugh at all sorts of odd things. She told them stories in broad Yorkshire and taught them new words. She laughed as if she could not help it when they told her of the increasing difficulty there was in pretending that Colin was still a fretful invalid. Motherhood lesson number 7 is to laugh with your children. They often see that very serious side of you as a mother, or a mother that's either in teacher mode if you homeschool, or work mode if you're doing housework, but they really need to see that laughing and loving and playful and enchanting side of you, because that is where they really connect with you one-on-one as a child who has an imagination. And both Mary Lennox and her cousin Colin Craven look at Susan Sowerby as just this angel, this woman that they wish she was their mother because she's this way. So not only does she take care of her home and do all of those things, but she also has that way about her that children are happy to be around her. She can laugh with them and not be so serious and enjoy their stories and take them seriously. And there's just that really special respect between a mother and a child when you can do that with them and not be so serious all of the time. There were so many wonderful lessons I got from The Secret Garden as a mother. Being out of doors was so good for Mary Lennox, so was being around people who finally loved her and paid attention to her, but also so was her having a lot of independent free play to be able to learn things on her own. This book was absolutely magic. I want to be in a garden more often, so does my daughter, and we just had a really great time reading this. So if you are an adult or a mother and you've never read The Secret Garden before, I highly encourage you to read it for yourself because you will love this book. And if your children haven't read it, you can either read it aloud to them, or if they're able to read on their own, I would highly encourage to give them this book because it's just one of those books that you read and it causes you to move. It changes the way you do things. It changes the way you look at the world. And this is going to be one of those books we return to possibly every single spring, if not every other spring, because it's just that good. So if you haven't read The Secret Garden, I really hope you do. And kind of as a bonus, we also read The Secret Garden Devotional, a chapter-by-chapter companion to the beloved classic by Rachel Dodge. And this one was fun and I liked it, but I will be perfectly honest with you, I don't know that I would do it again. It was good. I think if you're someone who loves The Secret Garden, you would probably just enjoy going through some of these ideas. But I don't think I would read it to my kids again when I'm reading this book. I would pick this up at a different time after we finish the book, but I actually wouldn't read these side by side anymore for a couple of reasons. The first being that at the beginning of each of the devotionals, it's basically a huge summary of the chapter. So if you've just read the chapter and then you try to pick this up, you're just kind of narrating it all over again, which isn't necessarily necessary. But also, I really don't know how I feel about things like this and having to Christianize or moralize everything about literature and stories. And I only say that, number one, I am a Christian, and I do think things naturally kind of have that view. But I kind of think that's why you don't really need something like this. I think The Secret Garden by itself gets across all of those ideas without making them plain as day and adding scripture to them. Now, this can be a great addition, and I think if your child was older and they really loved this book and had already read it before, then it would be great and fun to walk them through this. But if it was their first time encountering this story, I wouldn't go about moralizing it every step of the way. I think she did a pretty good job with it. I saw where she went with everything, but I just don't think it was necessary, to be honest with y'all. I think this story does a great job of just letting those ideas sink in very naturally, and I would just let the story do its thing. So those are my thoughts. I'm not recommending this. I am, because it was good. I just think this needs to be done at a later time. Let the story do its work, and if you are a fan, then come back to this, because it was lovely and did have great scripture and ideas according to things happening in the story. The illustrations are absolutely adorable, and I think it makes a great collector's edition if you are a Secret Garden fan. But yeah, I don't think I would read it alongside the book again. So I think in the future, I won't be doing things like that. I'll just be reading the story aloud with my children and letting it sink in for itself. So that's all I have for y'all. I hope that you enjoyed this style of video. It's sort of like a book review, but kind of with a twist. I feel like a lot of these books have been talked about so often that I just didn't want to give you another review. So I wanted to share what I learned from Susan Sowerby as a mother, and I hope that some of her advice was helpful to you all as well. If you have read The Secret Garden, please let me know in the comments below what you think about it, and if you haven't read it, please let me know if you're now going to. Lord willing, I will see y'all next time. Happy reading, friends!